Is there objection?
Madam President.
Senator from Hawaii.
Madam President, reserving the right to object. This bill being offered by my colleagues on the other side of the aisle is a partisan political stunt designed to distract the American people from the crisis created by Donald Trump's zero-tolerance policy. Almost 3,000 children have been ripped from the arms of their parents and traumatized by the president's cruelty. This bill would allow the Trump administration to continue to traumatize children by forcing them, possibly indefinitely, into so-called family detention centers. By offering this proposal, our colleagues are calling for the extended incarceration of children. This bill would invalidate the Flores settlement, which has ensured the humane treatment of children for decades. But it offers no specifics on what constitutes adequate detention conditions and no mechanism for monitoring them. The bill says the families will be given, quote, suitable living accommodations, quote, or, quote, access to drinking water and food, quote, and that services will be offered that are, quote, necessary for the adequate care of a minor child, end quote. But it does not say who determines what is suitable, whether adequate nutrition will be offered to the children, and who will decide what is necessary. These so-called standards are not good enough when the welfare of children is involved. This bill would also authorize the Border Patrol to separate families for the most minor offenses that have nothing to do with parenting or the safety of the children. It puts form above substance and gives DHS no discretion about when detention is the most appropriate or when alternative means such as ankle bracelets or other monitoring programs might be better. The so-called family unit residential centers in the bill are essentially family jails. We've heard from the American Academy of Pediatrics and other experts about how these children will be traumatized for life. We should be listening to these experts and stop giving the Trump administration a free pass to harm immigrant children. I look at the policies of this administration and at bills like this one, and I wonder how my colleagues are able to stomach our government treating families in these awful ways. And we've witnessed this kind of treatment in America over the last several weeks. The president refers to families with children fleeing war, gang violence, and poverty as infesting our country. I hear echoes from the darkest parts of America's past when African American slaves were depicted as monkeys. Chinese laborers in the 1870s referred to as pouring forth from their Asiatic hive, and Japanese Americans penned up like animals for the crime of their heritage during World War II. This mindset of viewing these immigrant families as subhuman does not exist in a vacuum. It has a history and a context that we cannot shy away from. It is because of that history that I have continued to demand not just an end to the detention of children and families, but also to demand accountability from Donald Trump's government. Last week, the Judiciary Committee had a closed-door briefing with officials from the Departments of Justice, Health and Human Services, and Homeland Security. We didn't get straight answers to our questions, mainly, why was this happening in our country in the first place? Why were these children separated from their parents? Why do we have ICE agents taunting these already traumatized children? Why? We need, and indeed, we should demand to hear from these officials in public and under oath. I urged Chairman Grassley to have a public oversight hearing on this issue with all of the relevant agencies. The chairman has now scheduled this long overdue hearing for July 31st with representatives from the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Health and Human Services, and the Department of Justice. It's critical that we hear from the witnesses because after separating nearly 3,000 children from their families, they are now chaotically scrambling to comply with judicial orders to reunite these families. The administration would not be reuniting these families without being forced to do so by the court. And they continue on their cruel path, undermining American values. And along this path, they have traumatized thousands of children and their families, likely forever. This administration needs no further tools to continue these cruel policies. To continue to enable Donald Trump to pursue his anti-immigrant agenda makes us all complicit in his cruelty and injustice. Madam President, for these reasons, I object.
Would the senator